Good evening, everybody. This is Rob with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guest tonight is writer and director Mark Cantu, which I watched a film. It was called Wolf's Hollow. How's it going?
It's going great. So it's a nice Easter weekend, so nice and relaxed and doing absolutely nothing. It's amazing.
I know. It's been great because it's Easter, getting around to be with all your family and all that, which is fun too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've had our kids here with us all day, so it's been a nice, relaxing Sunday for a change. So,
how'd you come up with the story Wolf's Hollow? When you watch the film, it starts off, there's a bunch of people out in the woods in Wolf's Hollow, enjoying a party, and then all of a sudden, you just see this werewolf going around like, wrecking havoc, tearing up people's faces, ripping off limbs. And then it goes from a year later to where it all begins with the young guy whose family was part of Wolf's Hollow, but he left and came back a year later. How'd you come up with that story?
So this is actually probably one of the most personal stories that I've ever done. So a lot of it has to do with kind of the root of Wolf Hollow is just kind of going back and kind of maybe dealing with toxic family members that you maybe just kind of want to cut off and say, look, I'm going to make a stand, and this is what my life is going to be like moving forward from this point. So I've definitely felt that in my own personal life. So I kind of tried to use some of that. So in a weird way, that's the message that I wanted to kind of lead with. And then I kind of looked for a story that kind of helped me tell that narrative. And so at that point, it really felt like, because we were kind of coming off of Massacre Academy, which is another movie that I just finished. So I was looking for something that was kind of effects heavy. I wanted to do something with a bit more gore. And so the weird thing is like, it just kind of popped in out of nowhere. It was just like, you know what? Werewolves would be a great way to do that. And I was like, okay. I have these weird little conversations with myself in my head sometimes. And the voice in the back of my head just said, you should do werewolves. You should really do werewolves because that's going to be really cool. And so I was like, yeah, you know what? That might actually work. So that's kind of where it initially started.
You had some great actors in the cast. You had Spencer Martinez, who played Twyla, the assistant to the prima donna actress who, she kept on going around thinking she was like the biggest superstar ever.
Right.
And then you had Felissa Rose, which was...
Yeah.
She had a very good, solid role in that film. I mean, and then you had a lot of great, and then you had Hannah Fairman in there as well.
Yeah. It's definitely probably the most stacked cast that I've ever had to shoot with, and everybody, every single person, whether they were Felissa Rose, whether it was Hannah Fairman, Lynn Lowry, all the way down to Noah Welter. This is his first major movie. Like literally everybody brought their A game. So it was so awesome just to kind of show up to work every day and just go, okay, they're bringing their A game. So I better be prepared every single day. So when you're dealing with that level of talent from everybody across the board, it makes you as a director definitely step up your game and make sure that you're on point every single day. Because again, you don't want to devalue or waste anybody's time. So definitely, like I said, it makes everybody kind of raise up to that level too. So it was definitely a privilege to do that.
Where you filmed Wolf's Hollow, the forest area was, pretty creepy, and I loved like the drone shots that were like, shooting into the forest. It just felt like you were part of this like community. Me watching it, I felt like I was an outsider, witnessing, everything that's happening, in Wolf's Hollow. I mean, now let's talk about the special effects. I mean, it got pretty brutal and bloody. Some of the stuff you did, like the one scene where the wolf just pulled the guy's head right out of his socket. How'd you guys do that?
It's a lot of old school techniques and stuff. So I think the one you're maybe thinking about is, I think it's Kitty, who's got like a silver wig.
Yeah.
That's Angel Bradford. So she's absolutely amazing. But first and foremost, like a lot of that credit goes to Katie Byers, who's our lead makeup effects artist on this. And every one of the effects that I kind of pitched to her, I was like, this is kind of what I want to do. And I know this is a lot, in terms of volume on the show. And to Katie's credit, never once did she go, no, we can't do that. She was like, okay, let me figure it out. Let's. And sometimes it was an approach of less is more. Let's kind of figure out a clever old school way to do things. And sometimes it even came down just to the cut. Like, how quick are we going to actually be with this? How much are we going to actually see of this? But those things, like I said, we had conversations about that over a course of a few months. But Katie, like I said, and the rest of our effects crew is just absolutely fantastic. But yeah, a lot of it's just old school, chewing gum and spit and nail polish and just kind of putting all of it together, just kind of hoping it'll work, and and it all really 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 fucking works. It's absolutely fantastic. So
yeah, especially the ones my favorite scenes of how you did the special effects were the clean slice cuts when they get the victims get sliced in the throat in half and blood splurting everywhere. It's like a good clean cut. It's like this wolf was like a professional surgeon or something. It just went.
Yeah, and that was kind of part of the design. Like I said, we really wanted it to be like. I mean, these wolves have been wolves for the longest time. So, I mean, they're efficient fucking killers. So, like, it's one of those things where, like I said, you leave the effects artist enough room to play and just kind of interpret character. But then some of that stuff actually comes from dealing with the actors and going, okay, how would they approach it? Would they maim them? Would they just be clean about it here? Would they do this? Would they do that? So it's kind of a team effort at that point. So,
yeah, let's talk about the actor you have in the movie. He called himself Lucky. I mean, every time he got like attacked by these werewolves, he kept on getting lucky. First, his arm gets sliced off. Then he gets another arm sliced off, and he's just going around, thinking this is the coolest thing ever. And he's like a wolf chow.
Yeah, and it's so funny. Brandon Crum is the actor who plays Lucky. And I met him on Massacre Academy, which is the movie before this one. And at that time, it was a couple of years ago, we were talking just kind of in between takes. And I was like, dude, we have to work on something together. Like, you're absolutely amazing on set. I love you as a person. Like, you're fantastic. And we got along really, really well. And so as I started to kind of come up with the idea for Wolf, I was like, you know what? I think I might want to pitch this to him and see what he says. And sure enough, like, he reacted immediately, and he was like, "Oh, that's totally my character. I'm playing that guy." And the funny thing is I've had Lucky Steve as a character. I've had that character in my back pocket for the last 15 years or so. And it's one of those characters where it's like, I want to fit him into this movie, but it doesn't really work. So then I want to fit him into this one. It doesn't really work. It doesn't. And it just kept not working in other movies that I was working on. And as I got to Wolf Hollow, I was like, this is the perfect one for him to actually be like one of the leads, or if not like very high up supporting character, like I said. And that was kind of the catapult for us to kind of go, yeah, we're really going to kind of take off with Lucky on this one. So.
Yeah. And then, Felisa Rose was pretty good into it, cause she was one of the, the part of the the werewolf pack family in Wolf's Hollow. And, she played like a very freaky, trippy type of character, and then when she was like transforming into that werewolf, man, that just gave me goosebumps on my arm, man. She played that role to the T. She's like, her character's like, man, why does everybody have to be in our business and stuff like this? We don't want this.
Right. Yeah, and it was like I said, we had worked with Felisa on Massacre as well. And again, she was just one that going into Wolf Hollow, we knew we wanted to carry her over. And I was like, yeah, we're going to write something for you specifically. And I didn't want to give her the short end of the stick. I wanted to give her something, like I said, dramatically that she could kind of chew on. So no pun intended, but I did kind of go out of my way to make sure that she had some great scenes, some good dialogue. And it was a lot of back and forth with the other actors in her scenes. So it's not just her kind of showing up and doing something on the day and, just kind of being done. Like, she's got to be with her fellow actors, and Felicia's so good at everything that she does. Like I said, you'd be a fool not to cast her in that regard. So because she's got great timing too. So
I think so too. I mean, she did a solid performance. Let's talk about the werewolf costume. How'd you guys create that in the movements and how it moved from the jaw and everything to make that costume so realistic?
So a lot of the credit goes to Midnight Studio Effects, which is a company out of Phoenix. And to their credit, I mean, they've been making werewolf costumes for the last 10, 15 years or so. But we kind of reached out to them, asked them what they had in stock and kind of, what we could kind of use. And the full suit for Evie, which is the main werewolf throughout the entire movie, it's kind of a dark gray or black almost. But that one was actually their newest design, their newest werewolf. And we initially had gotten wind of one of them, and we were like, hey, we'll use this one. It's kind of like a lighter gray. It kind of matched one of our other actors. And then they came out of nowhere, and they're like, hey, we've also got this one too. We just created this. No one's ever used it before. Do you want to use it? And we saw the design, and it looked like one of the werewolves from The Howling.
Yeah,
and
it did.
Was like, in my mind, when I wrote wolf, that's what I had in my head. And so, like, it was the outline of the wolf and the pointy ears and everything. And so when they sent that to me, I was like, we're going with that one. That's the one we're going to use, actually. And so then when we got the suit, our actor that actually is in it was Brian Saponis. He's actually in both suits, but we worked really hard to differentiate the movement. Evie is very specific one way, and then the other werewolf is a complete acts a different way altogether. So a lot of it comes down to once the suit's on, it's a lot of interpretation on the actor. And Saponis just does a fantastic job of just kind of selling her movements and being just absolutely brutal the whole time. So
I thought it. That werewolf looked really, really realistic, and I see how you're saying it. Kind of like you said, kind of remind me of The Howling too. I love the Howling films. Right. And then when I saw that, because I was going to ask you that, and I was like, he must have had some influence from the Howling films, because the wolf's face did look like one of the werewolves from the Howling. I mean, it could have been like close to like a doppelganger, which I liked. And I loved the ending of the film, the final duel. That was just phenomenal. And then where the whole werewolf head just exploded in blood.
Right.
I had a big smile on my face. I loved how it ended. And I love how you put the twist towards the end where is there more of his family, the pack, and then right before they were leaving out of town, you see these freaky kids. I'm like, oh my gosh.
We've got a lot more planned.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, because you see the wolf kids. It looks like they're really out for vengeance. They're wolves, but they're in human form. So I was going to ask you that. Are you going to do like a sequel to go from what happened from the end, or what?
We're definitely thinking about it. So we've already kind of had some of our cast is very fond of like pitching me like what they think the next one should be, and I'm like, we've got a couple of ideas. So yeah, there's definitely room for the story to kind of go on in a couple of different directions, but I won't say which ones they are. So I don't want to get into spoilers on that one. So.
No, I don't want to spoil. I'm excited, and I'm looking forward to see what happened. I mean, I love werewolf movies, and I've seen a lot of indie horror werewolf movies. I mean, there were some good ones, and there was some like it should have been made. And I'm just being honest. I'm just an honest person, but I really did enjoy this. I mean, it kind of also had a little bit of American Werewolf in London vibe, a little bit with the main character. How he left like a year and comes back. You kind of get like that vibe, a little bit.
Right.
And I love this the cinematography shots too. How you got certain shots in of of the wolf, and I loved how when the wolf is like on a hunt, I like how you look through the wolf's eyes, like like you see an infrared screen. I thought that was pretty cool because it felt like you were really looking through the werewolf's eyes because, you know, they were seen at night and it was like all infrared.
Right. And that was kind of like a nod to some older werewolf movies. But one of the ones that kind of influenced the kind of red, you know, vision that we had for the werewolf POV, oddly enough, is Lynn Lowry, who plays Marla. She was in an 80s movie called Cat People. And there's a couple of shots of like Natasha Kinski's character in that. It kind of has something similar to that. So that was kind of one of those inspirations of like, we're kind of nodding to a couple of different little movies here and there. And even like Marla's leg injury is kind of like a nod to her in Cat People when she gets her scratch. And so and it's little things like that, like I said, that really kind of make me happy. They're little Easter eggs and things like that. But yeah, I definitely wanted to kind of bring something to the table. There was like, it felt familiar, but it was our own little spin on those things. So.
Yeah, when you said earlier when you were making this film about getting rid of, you know, like negative and toxic people, like in anybody's lives, and you were putting it into your film, I mean, that's what most horror films about. You know, I've talked to a lot of, you know, film directors that did horrors. They would always have like, you know, like they had something abusive in their life or a toxic thing happen, and they, you know, put it all out on the characters. So, so the film a little bit was based off of you. So when you were filming and writing it, was it kind of hard for you to do it because you were in that type of situation?
Not really. I think it's one of those things where I'm, especially at this point in my life, I'm a bit better about kind of separating myself from the work. I think probably where it gets the most personal is when I'm actually writing it, because that's the first time all that stuff's kind of coming up. It's kind of, you know, stirring up everything. But then by the time we're to shooting, by the time we're at that point, I really do kind of look at it as, okay, this is y'all's story because the actors are now involved. They're bringing their own thing to the table. And I'm there just to record all that and just kind of film everything. But I've still got specific ideas about how I want to shoot things and kind of have things play out. But for the most part, when we're on set, like I said, it's pretty easy for me to kind of disconnect. But I think that's one of the fun things about horror movies, especially, is that you're able to kind of, at least for me, I'm able to kind of take things that are very personal, you know, whether it's trauma, whether it's tragedy, whether it's, you know, things that I've gone through in my life, and really kind of work through them in my own little therapeutic kind of way with the movie and kind of say, okay, this is kind of what I went through. This is my journey. This is where I'm going. This is how I feel. So it does kind of work through. It's very cathartic in that regard. So that's the part that I enjoy the most. So
that's pretty good. So this was out in the forest and all. Where did you actually film this in the woods at?
So we're actually so Pittsburgh is kind of, obviously it's a big metropolitan area.
Yeah.
And then there's little townships around there. So we were in a small township called North Versailles. It's spelled North Versailles, but it's pronounced Versailles down here or up here. But we were out there, and it's maybe a 25-minute ride from downtown. But it's one of those things where like the rural areas catch up on or kind of pop out very quickly in Pittsburgh and in Pennsylvania in general. But it is one of those things where, like I said, we were not too far from, you know, I mean, these little townships, like, you know, and big city life, but you turn a corner and all of a sudden you're in like 15 acres, 30 acres of woods. And as long as you kind of shoot in specific directions, you can't tell where you're at. So, and luckily enough, the guy that owns the property where we shot most of it is the actual haunted hayride. But Bruce Blissman, he owns that, and it's just literally his property, and it goes on for miles back there. So, so luckily enough, like I said, he opened his doors. We were able to, you know, take over the place for a couple of weeks, and like I said, he really kind of gave us a run of the place, and it was absolutely incredible. So, well,
that's good. I liked it. I just loved the creepy vibe filled of the woods and stuff. You know, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like, you know, very good. And now let's talk.
Well, the funny thing is too is like we're maybe, like I said, we're literally off of like a main road. We're literally half a mile off a main road, and like I said, you just go not even a quarter of a mile into the woods, and it feels like you're literally in the middle of nowhere. And all of that's already built because it was a It's a functioning hayride.
Okay.
So they've got all that stuff already built. So you didn't have to set dress anything. You didn't have to. So everything's already there and it's built for you. So it helped us save a lot of money at that point. So
That had to been cool. You had your own own movie studio to shoot stuff where you didn't have to really put too much money in it.
and that was the fun part. So it was really funny that we had that entire location to ourselves. Like there's literally nobody out there messing with you. So you've got the location to yourself, but then when you're driving into the park itself, there's this huge warehouse that Bruce has.
Yeah.
And that's where they do all their machining and their wood cutting and stuff like that. And so all the stuff that's inside the RV, when all hell kind of breaks loose halfway through the movie, we literally just parked the RV inside the warehouse, close the doors, and you've got your own little soundstage. And so everybody can kind of pop out, take a break, get some water, and then go right back in. And so we were literally kind of cut off from the outside world, and we're controlling kind of everything. And it was, like I said, it was absolutely incredible. So,
all right, let's talk about the film festival up in Pittsburgh. I had a friend that went up and saw it, and he really liked it. So when you were at the film festival, showing it, how did the audience take it? Did you sit in with the audience?
Yeah, so we actually just had our premiere last Saturday, and it was at the Hollywood Theater here in Dormont, and it was absolutely incredible. Like I said, it was about 300 people. It's the first time seeing it with a full audience. Like I said, I had seen it with a couple of people here and there just to kind of get gauge reaction, but this is the first time with a live audience, and everybody laughed where you wanted them to laugh, and they jumped where you wanted them to jump. And like I said, it was amazing to feel the energy. And I think it was even better just because everybody that was in the audience was amped up and they were ready to go. They had been wanting to see it. So there's nothing like seeing it like an opening night crowd like that, where everybody is excited to already be in the room. And then you start the movie and they're ready to go. So every joke lands, every jump is accounted for. So like I said, it was a great night. It was absolutely incredible. So
I bet it was. If I was you, if I made that movie, I would have been sitting in the back. I wouldn't let nobody know I was in there. I would.
I was very, very back. Yeah. The way the theater, like I said, I went out and kind of did my speech before the movie, and then I walked back. And by the time I got to the back of the theater, and by the time the seats had filled up, there really wasn't anywhere for me to squeeze into. So I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to stand in the back of the theater and I'm just going to watch everybody. And so I pretty much, it's an hour and 20 minutes for the movie. So I kind of watched, I'd say maybe 70% of the movie. I watched it from back there and just kind of like, and I knew I've seen the movie so many times at this point. You've edited and you've kind of gone through screenings and making sure everything sounds great. And so by that point, I know the movie like the back of my hand. So it was more fun for me to just kind of go, I know what's coming up on the screen, so I'm just going to watch over here. And just watching people's reactions, kind of seeing, 200 people kind of jump at the same time and, gasp at the same time. And it was absolutely incredible to watch it. So.
Yeah, and so how was your reaction when you saw your film on the big screen? What was going through your head? I mean, I know you've seen it before. You wrote it, and you saw everybody else in the theater enjoying it. What was going through your head when you were watching it?
At that point, to be honest with you, it's a lot of it is just pride in the fact that one, like it's so difficult just to make a movie in general.
Yeah.
But by the time you get to that point, and by the time you go, okay, boom, it's there on a huge, 60, 70 foot screen, it's amazing. And it's like you're a kid in a candy store again. So even though I've seen it 1,000 times, it's very easy to kind of get cynical and jaded about your movie. But I'm like, your movie's on a huge fucking screen. Like, it's awesome. It's fantastic. Like, why wouldn't you love this part of the process? So I always get a kick out of it. Like I said, by the time we get to those nights where we're having a premiere or having a screening, it's just awesome. It's so cool to hear the movie in a different way. And, cause I've got it in my small office back here, and then you hear it on its feet and you hear the little noises. And you're like, oh, that worked, or that didn't quite work, or that. So I'm always kind of working and fine tuning stuff. But for the most part, like I said, to see it on a big screen, it's so much fun to be a part of that.
Since you made your premiere, is it going to be shown at like any other horror festivals? Is it going to go on streaming, or what's going to happen for Wolf Hollow next?
So we've actually got a couple of different film festivals. There's a few overseas. So I know we're in Germany in the next month or so. I think we're about to have a premiere in like Manchester, England, in like the next couple of days as well. So I know those are happening, and I know we've already been accepted to those. There's some screenings in California, which is like a festival. Remembering off the top of my head, I think it's like Fear Fair or something like that. In San Bernardino, we've got a screening in Pelham, New Hampshire, coming up on August 27th as well, and that's at Chunky's Cinema Pub, if I'm remembering correctly. And then we've also got one that's scheduled right now for August 27th, and that's at the Smodcastle Cinemas, which is Kevin Smith's theater. We've got that August 27th in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, I think is where that's at. And then we've got, in terms of whether we're going to be streaming, whether we're going to DVD, all that stuff, that's in the works right now. I can't really talk about it too much, but that's there. We should hopefully be having some news within the next couple of weeks, something like that. So we'll keep you guys posted on that for sure, though.
Yeah, you better send me a Blu-ray. I support physical media.
Right.
And I'm gonna be keeping on you on that.
Absolutely, yeah. No, like I said, we're definitely, like I said, we're going through the process. Like I said, it can take a while sometimes. Yeah. But yeah, we're definitely in that process right now. Like I said, I wish I could say more, but I can't. But yeah, we're in the process right now.
Oh, come on, man! You can say a little bit. Come on.
No, I can't jinx it.
Okay, I won't let you jinx it. So, where can everybody find you on social media to see what next projects you're going to be doing?
So you can find the movie itself. Like I said, we're under Wolf Hollow Official Movie on Instagram, and then if you just type in like Wolf Hollow Official movie page on Facebook, you can find it there. My personal stuff is actually under Mark Cantu 98 on Instagram, and then on Facebook, I'm just under my name, just Mark Cantu. So.
Oh boy, that just sounds so basic.
It really is. I try not to like make things too complicated. I'm like, it's just me. I'm just a guy. It's just me on social media. That's it. So,
hey,
yeah, nothing too elaborate.
Hey, I feel you. I'm the same way.
Yeah. You know what? It's because like there's so much chaos going around with movies, and I'm always busy, and I'm like. I couldn't imagine committing to like some weird, like overly complicated social media stuff. I'm like, I don't know. I really don't. I want to open it up and just do stuff, and that's it. So yeah, I wouldn't be able to do that.
All right. Thank you for coming out of your busy time to come on to the podcast.
Absolutely, man. I've had a blast. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And everybody, thank you